We bring you, though, first, the growing crisis between the U.S. and Russia over Ukraine.
NBC News confirms the U.S. has warned the United Nations it believes Russia has plans to kill or arrest critics and dissidents in Ukraine if there's invasion. Some could be sent to camps. Today, Russia is denying this. So what's next? President Biden and Russian President Putin have agreed to meet, at least in principle, only if Russia does not invade Ukraine. But three sources, including two White House officials, say a final decision on a summit would be made only after further talks. Those talks between Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov are scheduled for Thursday.
Look, we're doing everything we can, and it's my responsibility to do everything I can to try diplomatically to prevent a war. And so I will leave no stone unturned to do that.
We have a team of correspondents covering this. NBC News foreign correspondent Matt Bodner is in Moscow, and correspondent Matt Bradley joins us from Ukraine, about 25 miles from the Russian border. Good morning to both of you. Matt Bodner, let's start with you in Moscow. President Biden has said quite clearly he believes that Putin has already decided to invade Ukraine. U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin says Russian forces are in a strike position. So what, if any, hope should we have for this meeting between Presidents Biden and Putin?
Thank you, Joe. Well, that's basically the question that plagues us all at this moment. So we saw a lot of kind of positive signals from the French, from the White House overnight, that there is a possibility of a meeting. But as we've seen several times now throughout this crisis, the Kremlin this morning almost immediately poured cold water on most of those signals, with at the daily Kremlin press briefing, Dmitry Peskov saying basically it is way too soon to be talking about a meeting between Biden and Putin. He said really the only substantial agreement on any kind of dialogue at this point with the U.S. is that meeting between Blinken and Lavrov later this week. And then once that's done, they can then start to look at something moving beyond that. But he said, he did continue to emphasize, though, that President Putin, President Biden can at any time decide to have a meeting. But that's a pretty standard Peskov line. All of this is happening, by the way, while we continue to see claims of escalation by the Russian media, by the separatists in Donetsk and Luhansk, of escalations provoked by the Ukrainians, all basically unsubstantiated. Lots of very strange videos that's really kind of capturing the narrative, framing it in a certain way here in Russia, that the Ukrainians are preparing something. We're even seeing claims today that they are already engaged in offensives in certain parts. So in a way, they're already dialing things up here on this end. So is this just an example of even more coercive diplomacy or not? We just don't know at this point, but basically, we're looking forward to this meeting with Biden and Lavrov on Thursday.
Yeah, Matt Bradley, let's talk more about this. Well, that potential Biden-Putin meeting offers a small glimmer of hope. We're seeing that massive uptake in reports of fighting in Russian-backed separatist enclaves in Ukraine. It was a violent weekend there. What more can you tell us about what's happening there?
Yeah, it was a very violent weekend. We're starting to see an increase in the tempo of these sort of engagements between Ukrainian regular forces and those separatists that Matt Bodner just mentioned in Donetsk and Luhansk, which is kind of near to where I am right now in Kharkiv. But, two Ukrainian soldiers were actually killed over the weekend during this rise in violence. And, it's interesting when we were talking about this diplomacy that's been going on. Actually, I spoke with a Ukrainian diplomat a couple of weeks ago, and he said, as long as the diplomats are talking, the guns are silent. And that's true, but we've also seen that as long as the diplomats are talking, the guns are moving. And that's what has happened right across the border from where I am, about 25 miles away. We're starting to see huge numbers of very sophisticated armaments going into western, sort of southwestern Russia. Right across the border, we're seeing attack helicopters, fighter jets, self-propelled howitzers. We're seeing that S-400 anti-aircraft system. This is very imposing, and it's changed dramatically moment to moment. Guys?
So, Matt Bodner, NBC News obtained that letter, which we mentioned just a moment ago, that was sent to the United Nations. It says, we have credible information that indicates Russian forces are creating lists of identified Ukrainians to be killed or sent to camps following a military occupation. What else can you tell us about this letter and Russia's response to this allegation?
So I'm not sure I have too much to add on that one. Obviously, we've seen the letter. We know it was sent to the United Nations, but it's kind of, it's another one of these examples of U.S. intelligence making an assertion of just something that we can't see. But the Russians are responding to it. We heard this morning, again, at Peskov's briefing, that this is basically nonsense. They're not, really buying or, grappling with it too much beyond that. But it's just it just goes to show that there's a lot of concern about Russia's ultimate intentions here, what might happen. Tensions are high.
Matt Bodner and Matt Bradley, thank you both. Appreciate it.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.